William Allen White and his friends may have forgotten about the mercenary Southern delegates, but the members of the Klan, the men running and funding Roosevelt's fledgling campaign, had not. They knew that they were off to a late start in the South, where the Republican Party was, to a large extent, a fiction. By 1912, most blacks were disenfranchised, and the Democratic Party had won every election since the end of Reconstruction. The Republican Party consisted primarily of those who had been appointed to office by the White House or wanted some form of support from the national government. Taft's campaign team had been hard at work in the region for months, using patronage and political favors to line up delegates before anyone else could enter the race. At first, members of TR's campaign team were convinced that they could win at least some Southern support. They hoped to find idealists or romantics who believed in his programs or in him. For those with more mercenary motives, Roosevelt supporters had other arguments at their disposal. Some incumbent office holders owed their job to Roosevelt. Others wanted to be in his corner in case he, rather than Taft, were to be selected as the party's nominee. In addition, there were scads of former Roosevelt appointees who had been removed by Taft, sometimes for his political friends, sometimes even for Democrats, men who were only too happy to find a way to get even. As he charged around the region, Ormsby McHarg sent glowing reports from Alabama. "Conditions in Alabama are more satisfactory than I had supposed they would be," he wrote Roosevelt on January 2nd, and from Georgia, where the colonel could claim to be something of a native son. McHarg's claims may have been inflated, but TR wanted to believe them. He had always had a romantic affinity for the South. His mother was a Georgia belle, and she loved to tell her children about the daring exploits of her brother, Irvin Bullock, and her half-brother, James Dunwoody Bullock. His uncles had served valiantly and famously in the Civil War, albeit on the Confederate side. "From hearing of the feats performed by my Southern forefathers and kinfolk," Roosevelt wrote in his autobiography, "I felt a great admiration for men who were fearless and who could hold their own in the world, and I had a great desire to be like them." Roosevelt began to think that in the general election he could win some states in the South and become a unifying force if he returned to power. But first he would have to win the Republican nomination, hopefully with the support of some delegates from the region. His campaign included several leaders with Southern roots. Roosevelt's campaign manager, Senator Joseph Dixon of Montana, had close ties to his native state of North Carolina. Throughout the region there were disgruntled business leaders who had been denied lucrative government contracts and countless disappointed office seekers. Some men favored TR because they were enraged that Taft had selected a Democrat and former Confederate soldier as Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. They complained that he had chosen Democrats for important positions in his administration, including a Confederate war veteran from Tennessee as Secretary of War. What's more, two key Southern state Republican Party chairs were close friends: Pearl White of Louisiana, who had worked closely with Roosevelt during his years as president, and Colonel Cecil Lyon of Texas, a political ally and bear-hunting companion. But even with disgruntled business leaders and men like White and Lyon on his side, gaining the support of delegates from the South would soon prove to be a challenge. White immediately promised to join the crusade, pledging to sink or swim with you. In a candid letter, though, he underlined the obstacles that they would confront in a region where almost every Republican owed his job or allegiance to the man in the White House. "The power of public office and the weakness of office holders is so great that I doubt if either Colonel Lyon in Texas or myself here can control these delegates," White told his friend 10 days before his public announcement. "I know in the other Southern states that is even more doubtful." As was becoming evident everywhere, TR had only one hope. "If we can get the Louisiana State Central Committee to agree to primaries," White said, "I am sure we can beat them overwhelmingly." With Taft's tight control of the party, however, there was no realistic chance of creating any Southern primaries. Once they became convinced that TR couldn't win many Southern delegates by the existing rules, his campaign team devised a complementary